The office was silent again, save for the low hum of the city just beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. Vanessa Reynolds stared blankly at the screen in front of her. A half-finished presentation blinked back at her in mockery. She hadn't typed a new word in 20 minutes. It wasn't the deadline haunting her. It was the stillness, the kind that followed you home and curled into your bed like a stranger. She adjusted the cuff of her blazer and glanced at the clock. 9:42 p.m. Behind her, a door creaked. The familiar sound of a rolling cart followed. She didn't need to turn around. She already knew who it was. "Evening, Ms. Reynolds," came the warm baritone voice. "Hey, Marcus," she replied without looking up, the corner of her mouth twitching into a tired smile. Marcus Taylor had been the night janitor at Halston Marketing for almost 2 years. Tall, quiet, dependable. He never said much, but when he did, it stayed with you. Vanessa couldn't remember when their greetings had begun to feel like a ritual. Something small, constant, grounding. She tapped her keyboard a few times for show, but she was watching him in the reflection of the glass. The way he moved, steady, purposeful, unbothered. There was grace in his silence, a kind of ease she envied. "How's the project going?" he asked, glancing at her desk as he passed with a trash bag. "Stuck," she admitted, exhaling. "I've rewritten the same headline 6 times. "You'll get it," he said, his voice like soft velvet. "You always do." She turned to face him, elbows resting on the desk. "You're strangely optimistic for someone who sees this place after everyone's burned out and gone." He chuckled, revealing perfect white teeth. "I clean up what's left. Can't help but notice the patterns." "What patterns?" "People like you," he said, holding her gaze. "The ones who stay late, chasing something." She blinked. "I'm not chasing, I just like the quiet." He tilted his head, unconvinced but respectful. "Sure." Vanessa fell silent. In truth, she hated going home. The townhouse she shared with Eric felt colder with each passing night. They'd once stayed up talking until sunrise, debated documentaries, dreamed aloud. Now, dinner was eaten. In silence, their conversations reduced to calendar reminders and takeout preferences. "Did you always want to be in marketing?" Marcus asked, snapping her back. "No," she replied, surprised at herself for answering honestly. "I wanted to teach literature, but marketing paid better." "Teaching would have suited you," he said without hesitation. She narrowed her eyes, curious. "Why do you say that?" "You listen," he said simply, "even when you pretend not to." That caught her off guard. Few people noticed her when she wasn't wearing her title. Not even Eric. Especially not Eric. "What about you?" she asked, folding her arms. "Ever dream of something else?" He leaned on the mop handle for a moment, thoughtful. "Used to work construction. Got hurt. Took some night classes. This pays the bills for now." "And later?" she probed. Marcus smiled faintly. "Later's still a work in progress." Vanessa found herself leaning forward. There was something about him. His groundedness, his lack of pretense. He wasn't trying to impress her. He just was. The elevator dinged somewhere far down the hall. Neither of them moved. "You should head home," he said gently. "It's getting late." She nodded, but didn't rise. "Yeah." Marcus returned to his cart, wheeled it past her door. Before turning the corner, he paused. "Don't forget who you were before the title," he said without turning around. Then he disappeared down the hallway, his footsteps fading. Vanessa sat motionless. That last sentence echoed louder than anything her husband had said in weeks. She turned back to her screen. The headline she'd been struggling with suddenly felt trivial. Downstairs, the city buzzed with life. But up here, in the shadows of glass and steel, something quiet had begun to shift. And for the first time in a long while, Vanessa didn't feel entirely alone. The next evening unfolded like the one before, Vanessa's office aglow under soft fluorescent light, while the rest of the building dozed in darkness. She barely noticed the time pass anymore. She told herself it was about work, about deadlines, about ambition. But she knew better. When Marcus pushed open the custodial closet and wheeled out his cart, Vanessa's heart responded before her. Logic could. "Hey," she said, her voice softer than usual. He looked up from adjusting a mop handle. "Evening." He passed by her doorway but paused. She expected him to keep walking, as he always did, but this time, he didn't. "Rough day?" he asked. She exhaled, leaning back in her chair. Long, meaningless meetings, recycled strategies, forced smiles. You know, the usual corporate therapy. He smiled. "Sounds productive." She laughed, genuinely. It startled her. "Come in," she offered impulsively, gesturing toward the visitor chair across from her. Marcus hesitated but stepped inside. He sat without making himself too comfortable, body angled toward the door, as if reminding himself he didn't belong here for long. They sat in silence for a beat. "You ever feel like everyone's looking through you?" she asked suddenly. Marcus looked up, his gaze unflinching. "Every day, but I stopped letting it define me." Vanessa looked down at her hands. "My husband hasn't really seen me in years. Not the real me, anyway." "You still see him?" Marcus asked. She paused. "Sometimes, in the morning light, when he's half asleep and doesn't have his phone in his hand. I catch glimpses of the man I married. But mostly, it's like sharing a house with a stranger who's always waiting for an important email." Marcus nodded, listening. She was struck again by how rare it was, being heard without interruption or judgment. "I think I stayed late at first because I didn't want to face that silence at home," she admitted. "Now I stay because the silence here feels different, calmer." He met her eyes, voice low. "Sometimes we go looking for pieces of ourselves in quiet places." Vanessa tilted her head. "Is that what you think I'm doing?" "No," he said. "I think you're remembering who you are." She swallowed hard. There was something incredibly dangerous about how easily he saw her, something addictive. A gust of wind swept against the glass windows, rattling the blinds slightly. Vanessa stood up and walked toward them. Below, the city sparkled, indifferent, to her turmoil. "I used to write poetry," she said, arms crossed. "In college. Late nights, candlelight, cheap wine. Haven't written a line in over a decade." "You should," Marcus said, his voice steady. "You've still got a poet's heart." She turned, caught off guard. "You barely know me." "I know enough." She didn't answer right away. Her chest tightened with something she didn't want to name. "I think about you sometimes," she said quietly. Marcus didn't flinch. "I think about you too." His honesty was a punch to the lungs, gentle but impossible to ignore. The air between them grew denser, charged. She stepped closer until only the desk stood between them. "You make it hard to breathe sometimes," she whispered, as if the words were slipping out against her will. He stood slowly. For a moment, they just stared, no movement, no words. Then she spoke again, even quieter this time. "Do you think we could start right here?" Marcus didn't answer with words. His eyes softened, his shoulders released the tension he always carried, and slowly, he walked around the desk to stand beside her. Their hands touched, not by accident this time. Hers trembled slightly. His was warm, steady. But it wasn't passion that consumed the room. It was recognition. Two people adrift, suddenly aware that someone else was treading water too. And yet, nothing more happened. Not yet. Marcus gently stepped back. You deserve more than a moment in the dark." Vanessa looked away, ashamed, relieved, confused. "No," she whispered. He moved toward the door, pausing before exiting. "I'll be back tomorrow," he said. "Same time." And with that, he was gone again, like he always was. But now, the air felt different, thicker, unfinished. Vanessa sat back down, pulse unsteady. Her laptop screen had gone to sleep, but her thoughts were wide awake. Something had changed, and there was no going back. Vanessa didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed next to Eric, listening to his breath, even and oblivious. His phone screen lit up the room twice, emails from coworkers probably. He didn't notice she was awake. He never noticed much anymore. The warmth that used to exist between them had dissolved into something cool and brittle, like glass left in the freezer too long. One sharp touch, and it would shatter. The next day at work, Vanessa floated through meetings, distracted. Her thoughts circled the same image. Marcus standing beside her, not touching her, but present in a way that no one else had been in years. There was no kiss, no promise, no affair. Not yet. But the idea of him had rooted itself deep. At 9:41 p.m., she was at her desk again, pretending to read a quarterly report. The office was quiet, and every muscle in her body was tuned to the sound of that cart. When the faint creak of the janitor closet door echoed, she sat up straighter. He appeared like he always did, quietly, effortlessly. But tonight, Marcus didn't push the cart straight down the hallway. He paused by her open door. "You're here early," she said, barely above a whisper. "Figured you might be too," he replied. There was no need for pleasantries anymore. Something fragile but undeniable had passed between them. Vanessa gestured toward the same chair as before. This time, Marcus didn't hesitate. He sat across from her, elbows on knees, gaze steady. "I couldn't stop thinking about what you said," she confessed. "Which part?" "That I deserve more than a moment in the dark." Marcus exhaled, his voice low. "It's true." She hesitated. "But what if that's all I get?" He frowned slightly. "Then you've been robbed." There was no sarcasm in his tone, only quiet sorrow. Vanessa looked away, ashamed. "I'm married," she said suddenly, as if stating it. Aloud could serve as some invisible barrier between them. "I know," Marcus said. "And I've respected that." "But I didn't respect it," she said quickly, eyes wet. "Last night, in my mind, I crossed a line." He didn't answer. Right away. Then, sometimes emotional betrayal cuts deeper than anything physical. Vanessa wiped at her eyes. "How did we get here?" "You were lonely," he said, "and I was paying attention." Silence settled between them again, thick, unrelenting. She stood up and walked to the window. Below, headlights moved like tiny stars across the grid of streets. She felt small against the skyline. "I used to believe in things," she said. "Love, purpose, partnership. Now I just survive." Marcus stood too, keeping distance between them. "You still believe. You're just tired of doing it alone." She turned to face him. "Why are you here, Marcus?" "Really?" He didn't flinch. "Because I see you. Not the polished executive, not the tired wife. Just you." And there it was, the honesty that stripped away pretense. "I think I want to kiss you," she said, voice trembling. "No," he replied gently. "But if we cross that line, we can't uncross it." She nodded, lips tight. Her heart raced with guilt, longing, fear. Then she asked the question she hadn't dared ask herself. "What does that make me?" Marcus stepped closer, not touching, just anchoring her with his presence. "It makes you human," he said. Vanessa's knees weakened, and she sat back at her desk, overwhelmed. "I don't know what to do," she whispered. "You don't have to decide tonight," he said. "But you do have to choose eventually what life you want, who you want to be in it." He turned toward the door but stopped, looking back. "I'll always respect your choice," he said, "even if it's not me." Then he left. Vanessa sat in the glow of her monitor, a single spreadsheet open but unread. She had never kissed him, had never broken her vows, not technically, but emotionally. She had crossed a line she couldn't erase. The worst part, it didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like clarity.